As a founder, you want your MVP built as quickly as possible with as little bugs as possible. But the approach that 90% of founders take only leaves them with very slow delivery times and a buggy MVP. Now, there's a better way. Instead of unrealistic deadlines, trying to do too much at the same time, and choosing speed over quality, momentum is all you need. Not to have unrealistic deadlines, not to be in a hurry, and certainly not to do too much at once. So momentum makes more sense if you're working with humans. You have a freelancer or a development team. If you're using no code, low code, or AI tools, it may not be so relevant. I first heard the word momentum way back in the 90s when I played a game called Desert Strike. It was a helicopter game where you go on missions, and you had two ways of controlling the helicopter. One was with the directional pad, while the other was with momentum. And I was like, what does momentum mean? I didn't really know what they meant then, but I just knew that controlling the helicopter with momentum was a way better way to enjoy the game. Now, what is momentum in the context of product development? It simply means attaining and maintaining a steady delivery of features in your product, not going too slow and not going too fast. Now let's look at an example of what momentum is really about in terms of product development. Let's say you have two trains, and each train has 10 containers to move from point A to point B, and they're on two different tracks. Now, these trains are built to take two containers at a time, and with two containers, they can move as fast as 100 miles per hour. Now, with the first train, the owner decides to load it with 4 containers and pushes it to go at 100 miles per hour. Now, the thinking is if you can take 4 containers at a time, you can go just 3 trips to move the 10 containers. But what you don't realize is that having it take twice as much load while pushing it to go 100 miles per hour is causing more wear and tear to that train. Whereas the train that takes just 2 containers has to do 5 trips, but it can go at 100 miles an hour at the recommended speed without causing as much wear and tear as the first train. Now, establishing momentum is like doing your product development at the speed of the second train. You have more trips, but it is steady, it's continuous, you have momentum. Whereas with the first train, you may take 4 containers at once, push it at 100 miles an hour, you may not even get up to that speed, and it may cause more wear and tear, but you are at the risk of having more things go wrong. A container could fall off because it wasn't designed to carry 4, and now you're stuck with containers on the train, and you have to find a way of getting the containers back on the train and moving them, right? So at the end of the day, you may do less trips, but you are prone to have more issues. For building your product, what you want is a steady pace of feature delivery, which is like the second train example, taking 2 containers at a time and moving at a pace that doesn't exhaust your developers. When you push your team too hard and you try and get too much to be done at the same time, your development team is going to get burnt out. And when your development team gets burnt out, you are most likely going to have very poor code. Because when you put too much pressure, you give them unrealistic deadlines, they're going to cut corners in order to make that happen. But the end result is the code is going to be very poor. You end up with an MVP that is too buggy to even release and get feedback. And the code may be so poor that it's going to be very hard to maintain. And the effect of that is in a short period of time, you find out that it's getting harder and harder for you to add simple features to your app. So you want to avoid pushing your team and getting them burnt out as much as possible. That's why it's better for you to achieve and attain some kind of momentum. Now with momentum, the problem is when you start your product development, you need a few iterations before you're able to achieve that right balance for your team. So it may be slow initially, right? And then you can give them, have more work to get done. Then you find out that they slow down and they don't get things delivered as fast as possible. Then you can take the load off until you find the right balance whereby you're able to maintain that consistency in the delivery of features for your app. So achieving momentum with your development team is quite easy. The first thing you need to do is just listen to your developers. Talk with them, find out what really works, what's too much work, what's too little work, so that you can get the right balance. Second thing is, don't try and do too much at once. Work in bits, right? Have iterations and have just the right amount of work to get done. Initially, when you start your development, it's going to be hard to determine that, but after several iterations, you get the right amount of work that needs to get done. Now, the third thing you need to do to make sure you have momentum with your team is don't skip on testing. The first thing developers don't do when you put pressure on them to meet deadlines is they stop testing. They won't test the product as they should. So make sure you do your testing. With every feature you build, make sure it's tested, because it's only when you test it and your tests are and you pass the tests that you can say that you're making progress. Otherwise, you're just writing code, so much code, and if you wait till the very end to test, it's just going to be a mess. You find out so many things will be broken. It's going to be very hard to find out what's causing the issues. So break your work down and test in every phase. Don't skip on testing. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe. If you have more things to add, you can add them in the comments. If you think someone will find this useful, please share it with any founder you think that will find this useful.